ॐ श्रीकृष्ण शरणं मम गोपिका जीवनस्मरणं गोविन्दा गोविन्द सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। नमो नमः सद्गुरुभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो नमः सद्गुरुभ्यो नमो नमः। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रय विनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरह कातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुः तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। यस्वानुभावमखिल श्रुतिसारमेकम् अध्यात्मदीपम् अतितितीर्षतां तमोऽन्धं संसारिणां करुणयाः पुराणगुह्यं तं व्याससूनुम् उपयामि गुरुं मुनीनां। योगीन्द्राय नमस्तस्मै शुकाय ब्रह्मरूपिणे संसार सर्पदष्टं यो विष्णुरातम् अमूमुचत कालव्यालमुखग्रास त्रास निर्नाश हेतवे श्रीमद्भागवतं शास्त्रं कलौकीरेण भाषितम् एतस्मादपरं किञ्चित् मनःशुद्ध्यै न विद्यते जन्मान्तरे भवेत् पुण्यं तदा भागवतं लभेत्। ज्ञानवैराग्यसम्पूर्णान् हरिभक्तिपरायणान् पूर्वाचार्यातहं वन्दे सम्प्रदायप्रवर्तकान्। भगवन्नाम साम्राज्यं लक्ष्मी सर्वस्वविग्रहं श्रीमद्बोधेन्द्रयोगीन्द्र देशिकेन्द्रम् उपास्महे। कलिकालोचितं धर्मं नाम संकीर्तनात्मकं निर्णेतुम् अवतीर्णं तं प्रेमिकं सद्गुरुं भजे। हरे रामेति कृष्णेति नाम संकीर्तनं सदा लोकक्षेमाय कुर्वन्तं प्रेमिकं सद्गुरुं भजे। जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयात् इतरतश्चार्तेष्वभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः तेजो वारिमृतां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि। धर्मः प्रोज्झितकैतवोऽत्र परमो निर्मत्सराणां सतां वेद्यं वास्तवमत्र वस्तु शिवदम् तापत्रयोन्मूलनम्। श्रीमद्भागवते महामुनिकृते किं वा परैरीश्वरः सद्यो हृद्यवरुध्यतेऽत्र कृतिभिः शुश्रूषिभिस्तत्क्षणात् निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखात् अमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। श्रीमद्भागवताख्योऽयं प्रत्यक्षः कृष्ण एव हि स्वीकृतोऽसि मया नाथ मुख्यर्थं भवसागरे। मनोरथो मदीयोऽयं सफलः सर्वदा त्वया निर्विघ्नेनैव कर्तव्यो दासोऽहं तव केशव। श्रीहरये नमः। श्रीहरये नमः। श्रीहरये नमः। गोपिका जीवन स्मरणं गोविंदा गोविंदा सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। Good afternoon, everyone. Okay. All right. So we'll do a review of 31 up to 40 today. So Priya Shrikumar, can you do 1 to 20, and then Vasu, can you do 21 to 40?
Rajesh, can ask somebody else to do for today because I have a terrible headache.
No worries, no worries. Vijaya, ungala panna mudiyuma 21 to 40. Okay. Priya, you can start. Priya Shrikumar.
Rajesh, it is from 5, 6, right? Because
you can do from 1. You can start it off from 1, right?
Okay. Shri Bhagavanuvacha कर्मणा दैवनेत्रेण जन्तुर्देहोपपत्तये स्त्रियाः प्रविष्ट उदरं पुंसोरेतः कणाश्रयः कललं त्वेकरात्रेण पञ्चरात्रेण बुद्बुदं दशाहेन तु कर्कन्दुः पेशण्डं वा ततः परं मासेन तु शिरोद्वाभ्यां बाह्वङ्क्राद्यं विग्रहः न खलोमास्ति चर्माणि लिङ्गच्छिद्रोद्भवस्त्रिभिः चतुर्भिर्धातवः सप्त पञ्चभिः क्षुत्रिडुद्भवः षट्भिर्जरायुणा वीतः कुक्षौ भ्राम्यति दक्षिणे माधुर्जग्धानपानाद्यैः एतद्धातुरसम्मते शेते विण्मूत्रयोर्गर्ते स जन्तुर्जन्तुसम्भवे कृमिभिः क्षत सर्वाङ्गः सौकुमार्यात् प्रतिक्षणम् मूर्छाम् आप्नोत्युरुक्लेशः तत्रत्यैः क्षुधितैर्मुहुः कड़ुतीक्ष्णोष्णलवणजोक्षाम्लादिभिर्गुल्बणैः मातृभुक्तैरुपस्पृष्टः सर्वाङ्गोत्थितवेदनः उल्बेन संवृतस्तस्मिन् अन्ध्रैश्च बहिरावृतः आस्ते कृत्वा शिरकुक्षौ भुग्नपृष्ठशिरोधरः अल्पस्वाङ्गचेष्टायाम् अकल्पस्वाङ्गचेष्टायां शकुन्द इव पञ्जरे तत्र लब्धस्मृतिर्दैवात् कर्मजन्म शतोद्भवम् स्मरन् दीर्घमनुश्वासं शर्म किं नाम विन्दते आरभ्य सप्तमान्मासाद् लब्धबोधोऽपि वेपितः नैकत्रास्ते सूतिवातैः विष्टा भूरिव सोदरः नाथमान ऋषिर्भीतः सप्तवध्रिकृताञ्जलिः स्तुवीदतं विक्लवया वाचा तेनोदरेऽर्पितः जन्तुरुवाच तस्योपसन्नम् आवितुं जगदिच्छयात् नानातनोर्भुवि चलच्चरणारविन्दं सोऽहं वज्रामि शरणं ह्यकुतो भयं मे येनेदृशी गतिरदर्श्य सतोऽनुरूपा.
Priya, two small things. The first line, it's tasyopasannam avitum. I think you said it's just avitum in the first line.
Yeah.
And then soham brajami.
Shall I repeat once more that?
Yeah.
तस्योपसन्नमवितुं जगदिच्छयात् नानातनोर्भुवि चलच्चरणारविन्दं सोऽहं व्रजामि शरणं ह्यकुतो भयं मे येनेदृशी गतिरदर्श्य सतोऽनुरूपा यस्त्वत्र बद्ध इव कर्मभिरावृतात्मा भूतेन्द्रियाशयमयीमवलम्ब्य मायाम् आस्ते विशुद्धमविकारमखण्डबोधम् आतप्यमान हृदये वसिदं नमामि यः पञ्चभूतरचिते रहितः शरीरे चन्नो यथेन्द्रियगुणार्थ चिदात्मकोऽहं तेना विकुण्डमहिमानं ऋषिं तमेनं वन्दे परं प्रकृतिपूरुषयोः पुमांसम् यन्माययोरुगुणकर्म निबद्धनिस्मिन् सांसारिके पथिचरं तथभिश्रमेण नष्टस्मृतिः पुनरयं प्रवृणीतलोकं युक्त्या कया महदनुग्रहमन्दरेण ज्ञानं यदेतद् अदधात् कथमः स देवः त्रैकालिकं स्थिरचरेक्ष्वनुवर्तितांशः तं जीवकर्म पदवीमनुवर्तमानाः तापत्रयोपशमनाय वयं भजेम देह्यन्यदेह विवरे जठराग्निनासृग्विण्मूत्रकूपपतितो भृशतप्तदेहः इच्छन्नितो विवसितुं गणयन् स्वमासान् निर्वास्यते कृपणधीर्भगवन् कदा नु येनेदृशीं गतिमसौ दशमास्य ईशः सङ्ग्राहितः पुरुदयेन भवादृशेन स्वेनैव तुष्यतु कृतेन स दीननाथः को नाम तत्प्रतिविनाञ्जलिमस्य कुर्यात् पश्यत्ययं धिषणया ननु सप्तवध्रिः शारीरकेदमशरीर्यपरस्वदेहे यत्सृष्टयासं तमहं पुरुषं पुराणं पश्ये बहिर्हृदि च चैत्यमिव प्रतीतं सोऽहं वसन्नपि विभो बहु दुःखवासं गर्भान निर्जिगमिषे बहिरन्धकूपे यत्रोपयातमुपसर्पति देवमाया मिथ्यामतिर्यदन्नु संसृतिचक्रमे तत्
Stop there.
तस्मादहं विहति विकल्वहुत्तरिष्ये आत्मानम् अशुतमः सुहृत् आत्मनैव भूयो यदा व्यसनम् एतत् अनेकरत्रं मामे भविष्यत् उपशातित विष्णुपादः.
The first line மட்டும் விஜய் ஒரு word விக்லவ விகதி விக்லவ.
विक्लव. ओके. कपिल उवाच एवं कृतमधिर्गर्भे दशमास्यस्तुवन् ऋषिः वाचीनं प्रशुद्ध्यैषूति मारुतः.
The sadyah and the visarga you have to say okay in the second line. Sadyah kshipatyavachinam.
Okay. सद्यः क्षिपते. ओके. तेनावस्पृष्टः सहसा कृत्वा वा क्षीरहादुरः विनिष्क्रामति कृच्छ्रेण निरुच्छ्वासो हतस्मृतिः पदितो भुव्यसृङ्मुद्रे विष्टापूरिव चेष्टते रोरूयति कथे ज्ञाने विपरीतां कतिं कतः परच्चत्तं न विदुषा पुष्यमानो जनेन सह अनभिप्रेतमापन्नः प्रत्याख्यातुम् अनीश्वरः शाहितो शुचि पर्यङ्के जन्तुस्वेधजे दूषिते.
Svedaja and the word is a little tricky to say that. Svedaja dushite.
Okay. जन्तुस्वेधज दूषिते नेशस्कण्डूयनेङ्कानाम् अशनोत्तान
Asanotana.
आसनोत्तान श्रेष्ठने धन्त्यामत्वचं तंशाः मशकामत्कुणातयः रुदन्तं विगतज्ञानं कृमिकं यथा इत्येवं शैशवं भुक्त्वा दुःखं पौकण्ठम् एव च अलप्ताभिप्सितो ज्ञानात् हितं मन्यस्सु चार्पितः सह तेहेन मानेन वर्तमानेन मन्युना करोति विग्रहं कामेष्वन्धाय चात्मनः भूतैर्पञ्चविर्हारब्धे देहे देह्ययुक्तो सकृत्
Dehya bhudo sakrita.
देह्य बुधो सकृत् अहं ममेति सत्ग्राहः करोति कुमतिर्मतिं तत् अर्थं कुरुते कर्म यद्वत्तो यादि संसृतिं यो नु यादि तदत् क्लेशम् अविद्या कर्मबन्धनः सद्भिः शिष्णोतर क्रुधोद्यमैः आस्थितो रमते जन्तुः तमो विशति पूर्ववत् सत्यं शौषं दया मौनं बुद्धि श्रीर्हिरिर्यशस् क्षमां
यशः क्षमा
बुद्धिः श्रीर्हरिर्यशः क्षमा.
Second, which the buddhi he when the issue will become the joining letter. So buddhish, but and the yashaha mattam will come because sha is coming later. So
okay, buddhish
shrir hrir.
Okay. बुद्धिशीर्षः क्षमा शमोधमो भक्षश्चेति यत्सङ्घात्यादिसंशयं तेषु अशान्तेषु मूढेषु साधुषु शङ्कं न कुर्यात् शोच्येषु योषित् क्रीडा मृगेषु च.
The first word teshu ashanteshu is correct, but generally when the u and a comes, it becomes a shwa. So it's teshva shanteshu.
Deshva shanteshu mudeshu. Okay. नधास्य भवेन्मोहो बन्धश्चान्त्यप्रसङ्गतः योषिच्छङ्घात् यदा पुंसो यथा तत्सङ्गी सङ्गतः प्रजापतिष्वां दुहितरं दृष्ट्वा तत्रूपदर्शितः रोहितभूतां शोण्वधावत् वृक्षरूपी हदत्रपः सृष्टेषु कोन्वकण्डितदीप्पुमान् ऋषिं नारायणं ऋते योषिन्मह्येह मायया फलं मे पश्य मायायाः श्रीमय्या जैनो दिशां या करोति पदाक्रान्तान् ब्रूह विजृम्भेन केवलं सङ्घं न कुर्यात् प्रमदाशु जातु यो कस्य पारं आरुरुक्षुः मत्सेवया प्रतिलब्धात्मलाभो वदन्ति या निरयत्वारमस्य योपयादि शनैर्माया योषित्येव विनिर्मिता ताम् ईक्षतात्मनो मृत्युं तृणैकूपम् इवावृतम्.
Yeah, and the second line, first word, you broke it. That's correct only. But I'll change the, you say, Tamikshetatmano mrityum.
ताम् ईक्षतात्मनो मृत्युम्.
Kshe sound. Tamikshetatmano
Oh, okay.
mrityum.
Okay, ताम् ईक्षेत्मनो ताम् ईक्षेष्टात्मनो मृत्युम्. Okay.
Yeah, the right way to bake would be Tamiksheta Atmano mrityum. Appdi varudhu. So that's why you cannot break it like the way you did. So that's why it's Tamikshetatmano.
Okay.
All right. So listen, I only haven't finished the meaning of this chapter fully. So let me complete that, right? So just to give a context, right? So in 30th chapter, we kind of saw the life of a grihastha and then what happens at the old age, at death, just before death, at death, and after death, and a bit through the next stages the soul goes through. And then in the 31st chapter, then, it's taking birth, right? And it is getting into the womb of the mother. We saw the progression of the fetus in the womb, and then what happens. And finally, we saw a little bit of the stuti that the soul does, Janturu Vacha, where it's doing a stuti. And in the stuti, while it talks about a lot of things, one of the important things, it initially starts off by saying that, this place is a horrible place for me to be in the womb of the mother because of all the challenges, all the pains. But then it then says, actually, it's still better than me coming out. Right? Because if I come out, I feel that I'm going to get stuck into that rut again, and I actually don't want to come out, right? But then what happens is, but because of its karma, it has to be born. So it is born, and from the time it is born, and then from the point just before it is born, when it has that knowledge, right? Then how do we not have the knowledge now? Because we all realize, okay, we all hear from everybody saying, don't do these things, right? You're getting stuck, this is bad, but we still continue to do it, right? So there is something that is getting changed, right? From the time it is in the womb to where it is right now, although we still know. So it's a combination of a couple of things, right? The soul in itself does not forget. It knows the truth. The soul in you knows what is the ultimate truth. But what is happening is there are a lot of distractions, right? A lot of influencing factors which happen initially, just environmental influencing factors. And plus, as it grows, the body grows, there are different challenges that come, which is what the rest of the Dashakam, the rest of the chapter is. He's really telling how the soul is getting changed. The soul doesn't change, how the body is getting changed, because of which the soul is losing that connection to the supreme reality. That's what pretty much step by step he's walking through, right? So, and it depends on a lot of things. For example, when it grows, we all experience different things. Like we experience hunger and thirst, comfort and pain, which a soul actually does not experience, but the body is experiencing, right? So because the body has all of these needs, the body is beginning to feel, I am tired, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. So the soul is experiencing, because whatever the body is going through, the soul experiences it. So the body is feeling thirsty, the soul can feel the thirst. So it is getting hooked on to all of these sensory things, right? And then, of course, we have the various sounds we hear, the various sights we see, the various touches that come, all the social interactions we have. all of this is continuing to change the mind, and because of which the soul is getting changed. Then we all have our education, culture, all of those influences, and then plus we all have our karma that we are bringing in, that vasana that we have from so many births, which we are bringing into this birth, is a very strong pull, right? So we cannot, unless we shed that, that is going to continue to remain with us. So all of these are reasons kind of why it is happening. But anyway, when you go step by step, it starts about when the baby is young. At that time, it has absolutely no idea, right? And its body is too weak, it is fragile, it doesn't know what to do. Like we said last time, when it's itching, it doesn't know it has to itch. It is so dependent on everybody. So right from that small age, right, it's a hard being a baby. In fact, I was just asking Dr. Shreya the other day when I was looking at some pictures, is I said, do you want to ever go back to being a baby? And she said, no, because I could not talk anything. I could not tell what I want. So that's a real pain. We have come out of it. We are happy that we are older right now. But what we don't realize is you take birth again, you have to go through the process again of being a baby where you cannot express anything, you cannot tell anything, right? And the mother has to infer it correctly. And then when it becomes pauganda, when it becomes the 5 or 6 years old, that's when all these emotions start kicking in, right? The feeling of anger, the feeling of sadness, because you are not getting anything. Because now more and more the body is beginning to experience this, which means the soul is really getting too distracted with everything that is going on, right? If you are absolutely still, without having any sense, without feeling anything, without having any emotional thing, the soul will eventually start connecting. But when you have all these distractions, it's just too busy a life for it to kind of go back to what the original thing is, right? So then it talks about how when the person becomes a little bit of a youth, then ego comes in, right? The pride comes in of wanting to say that I am better than somebody else, right? That comes in when we start going to school, when we start going to college. So now more and more the body is beginning to feel it is me. The body is me, right? I am stronger than somebody else. I'm faster than somebody else. I'm better than somebody else. So all of that start coming, and the soul is getting more and more attached to the body. And all these things are conditioning it to go away from what the original truth is, right? And then, what you call then the challenge starts is, as you become older, or as we all became older at some age, then to satisfy all these needs that we have, satisfy our need of being better at something, satisfying our need of getting all the possessions and the status, people start making mistakes, right? And that mistakes is because you cannot get what you want. So people start going in the wrong path. And what we don't realize is every step of doing in the wrong path is creating more negative karma for us, which is going to bind us, right? So this we're going to see. And then, so that is a challenge, and we're going to see in a little bit of this in the Ajamila episode, etc., when we come, of how it starts taking you in the wrong direction to fulfill your material needs. And then he talks extensively about, before we come to that, the other challenges, talks about how, like we said before also, nobody is saying do not get attached or do not stay close to people who are ignorant or who are running after sensory pleasures. The challenge that Kapila is saying very clearly here is, if there is somebody who's always chasing material things and always chasing sensual pleasures and chasing all other sensory things, you also attach with him. What happens is you will also get pulled into it unintentionally. So it is not to say don't stay with them, right? That's not the meaning here. It's just saying that when you're doing it, what happens is you have to be careful. At the end of the day, it is about self-discipline, right? You got to choose where you are spending your time, right? And like in Narayanam also, it says bhaktir utpatti vriddhi tavacharana ushram. It says when you want to be rich, you hang out with rich people. If you want to get more devotion, you have to stay in the right satsang. So if you end up staying with a lot of people who are very materially attached and all of other desires, more and more you start going away from it unintentionally, and then it becomes very hard to come back, right? Then very extensively from 35, he talks about the biggest challenge, the biggest sensory challenge. He says wealth, money is one. You're chasing after money, he says you can still recover. You're chasing after fame, you can recover. You're chasing after power, you can recover. But he says anything that you go after lust or other sensual relationship, he says it binds you even more strongly. So he says that is a big challenge to overcome. And then it kind of gives a couple of examples saying it is very hard, because he's saying even the greatest of the demigods like Indra cannot come out of that. He says only the great rishis like Narayana, it says, no, Rishim Narayanam Rite. Only the great rishis like the Nara and Narayana are able to control that lust to the extent that it doesn't bring their downfall. Otherwise, it's a very hard thing to actually overcome. And it gives both for men and women. He gives two examples, right? And this is applicable to everybody, but he gives it in the context of men and then a woman later. So he says for a man, he says even a simple, if a lady is walking and a simple movement of a lady can trigger desires in men, because of which they can easily get distracted from what they are doing. That's why even when Vishwamitra and everybody were meditating, they used to send all these apsaras because they feel like that is the easiest way to hook, right? Sending more money, they are not going to fall for it, right? But lust is some desire which is going to pull them back very strongly. And he's saying you have to always be conscious of that because it's very difficult to come out of it. Then the other thing he says is, and now he comes to women. Now this is also applicable to men. He says that if in your previous birth, if a man is very, very attached to a woman or he likes women a lot, he says a very good chance that the next birth he's going to be born as a woman. Same thing can also apply vice versa. Now, that is not the only reason you're going to take an opposite gender. So I'm not saying that either. He's saying that sometimes if you're so attached to the opposite gender, then you become, because that's what you are thinking about at the time of your death. At the time of the death, you're not going to get conscious thoughts. It's whatever is in your memory is going to come flashing back, right? So by the time all you've been thinking through your entire life is thinking of the opposite gender, then that thought is going to come when you're about to die, which means there's a good chance you're going to become the opposite gender in your next birth, right? To kind of go through that journey. He says that is one of the things. And then he says the challenge with this, you have to realize that, and in the context of women, he says women are very attached to family, very attached to making sure everything needs to go fine and everything. He says you have to remember that all this existence is all because of the setting that you have been given. So that doesn't mean you have to leave all the setting and walk away, but you should not get bound to it, right? That is the biggest thing that, of course, we all are stuck into it. So you have to be careful to not get bound into it and then be knowing about it, right? So that's kind of the summary he's giving. But at the end of the day, he says, because of all these things that the soul is undergoing, where it keeps committing karma more and more and more, it keeps wandering from body to body, planet to planet, to fulfill all its karmas and desires and everything. It keeps going. And the important thing he's saying is, you should not fear death at all. It's a very beautiful explanation he gives. He says, when you're born, you come in with a certain set of things you're going to do. When that certain set of things are done, that's called death. Now you've accumulated something. You got to go to the next life to go accumulate, to pay for it. That is birth. So he says, don't think of birth and death as an end of it, because your soul is the same. It is just taking different journeys that it is actually going through. So you should absolutely not be thinking or worried about death at all. It is just a journey. It's just a point in time in a journey for you to begin the next journey, right? So that's what he says. And then, he says, next chapter, he's going to go more into it. But anyway, he says, by spiritual understanding, by getting bhakti, you can go gradually move away from this, right? Step by step, and you won't get stuck into this rut. So with that, this chapter comes to an end. And the next chapter is the last chapter of Kapilopakyanam, where he kind of concludes with a few other things. Okay, so let's see who we had today. Uma, you can be a student, and Srividya, Ramesh, I think you are on. Yeah.
Yes, I am here.
Yeah. All right, so we'll start from 41 to 30. Okay. Yam manyate patim mohat, that in goes away, it becomes it because you're stopping there. Mohat, comma. Man mayam rishabhayatim stritvam stri sangatah prapto. Actually, this is literally that statement which says stritvam, when you get attached to it, then you become that as you get more attached. Anyway, stritvam stri sangatah prapto, comma, vittapatya griha pradam. Yam manyate patim mohat manmayam rishabhayatim stritvam stri sangatah prapto vittapatya griha pradam.
Yamate patim mohat manmayam rishabhayatim stritvam stri sangatah prapto vittapatya grihapradam.
यां मन्यते पतिं मोहात् मन्मायां वृषभायतीं स्त्रीत्वं स्त्रीसङ्गतः प्राप्तो वित्तापत्यगृहप्रदम्
तामात्मनो विजानीयात्, put a plus, patya grihatmakam, so that line is together, daivopasaditam mrityum, comma, mrigayor gayanam yatha. तामात्मनो विजानीयात् पत्य गृहात्मकं दैवोपसादितं मृत्युं मृगयोर्गायनं यथा.
तामात्मनो विजानीयात् पत्यगृहात्मकं दैवोपसादितं मृत्युं मृगयोर्गायनं यथा
तामात्मनो विजानीयात् पत्यगृहात्मकं दैवोपसादितं मृत्युं मृगयोर्गायनं यथा
देहेन जीवभूतेन, लोकाल्लोकम् अनुव्रजन् भुञ्जान एव कर्माणि, करोत्य विरतं पुमान्. देहेन जीवभूतेन लोकालोकमनुव्रजन् भुञ्जान एव कर्माणि करोत्य विरतं पुमान्.
देहेन जीवभूतेन लोकालोकमनुव्रजन् भुञ्जान एव कर्माणि करोत्यविरतं पुमान्
देहेन जीवभूतेन लोकाल्लोकमनुव्रजन् भुञ्जान एव कर्माणि करोत्यविरतं पुमान्
जीवो ह्यस्यानुगो देहो, भूतेन्द्रिय मनोमयः तन्निरोधोस्य मरणं, break at that im there, next lines are avirbhavastu sambhavah. So one thing he says is that the body you are getting right now, the body you have in your birth, is don't think it's just some accident or random that you have a certain body and all of that. He says that body is very clearly what you deserved because of everything you have done. Right? So there's nothing like, oh, why my one hand is broken, whatever the case may be, right? He says that body is absolutely whatever body, and in the senses, everything, the way it is acting is all the vasanas and all the things you've committed is what is driving what you have gotten right now. Jivo hyasyanugo deho bhutendriya manomayah tannirodhosya maranam avirbhavastu sambhavah.
जीवो ह्यस्यानुको देहो भूतेन्द्रियमनोमयः तन्निरोधोऽस्य मरणम् आविर्भावस्तु सम्भवः
जीवो ह्यस्यानुगो देहो भूतेन्द्रियमनोमयः तन्निरोधोऽस्य मरणम् आविर्भावस्तु सम्भवः
द्रव्योपलब्धि स्थानस्य, द्रव्येक्षा योग्यता, one word, द्रव्येक्षा योग्यता यदा तत् panchattvam aham manat, the do that is there, I'm just breaking it, put a it there, that panchattvam aham manat, utpattir dravya darshanam. द्रव्योपलब्धिस्थानस्य द्रव्येक्षा योग्यता यथा तत् पंचत्वम् अहं मानात् उत्पत्तिर्द्रव्यदर्शनम्.
द्रव्योपलब्धिस्थानस्य द्रव्येक्षा योग्यता यथा तप्त पंचत्वम् अहमानात् उत्पत्तिर्द्रव्यदर्शनम्.
Second line, first word, tat panchatvam.
तत् पंचत्वम्.
द्रव्योपलब्धिस्थानस्य द्रव्येक्षा योग्यता यदा तत्पञ्चत्वमहं मानात् उत्पत्तिर्द्रव्यदर्शनम्.
Mute. Turn it off. Press the.
Yatakšnor dravyavayava, one word, dravyavayava is one word, plus darshana yogyata yada, so that line is continuous. Tadaiva chakshusho drashtuhu, comma, drashtritva yogyatanayoho. That word cannot break that. So it's drashtritva yogyatanayoho. यताक्ष्णोर्द्रव्यावयवदर्शना योग्यता यदा तदैव चक्षुषो द्रष्टुः द्रष्टृत्वा योग्यतानयोः
यताक्षेणोर्द्रव्यावयवदर्शना योग्यता यदा तदैव चक्षुषोर्द्रष्टुः द्रष्टुत्वा योग्यतानयोः.
ரெண்டு correction. And the second line la after the comma drashtritva.
Okay, then.
Okay, and then first word yatakšnor.
Okay, yatakšnordravya
Yeah, drashtrit.
Okay.
ಯಥಾಕ್ಷ್ಣೋರ್ದ್ರವ್ಯಾವಯವ ದರ್ಶನ ಗ್ಯಾಪ್ ಇಲ್ಲಲ್ಲ ಹಂಗ
Together, yeah.
ಯಥಾಕ್ಷ್ಣೋರ್ದ್ರವ್ಯಾವಯವದರ್ಶನ ಯೋಗ್ಯತಾ ಯದಾ ತದೈವ ಚಕ್ಷುಷೋ ದ್ರಷ್ಟುಃ ದ್ರಷ್ಟೃತ್ವಾ ಯೋಗ್ಯತಾನಯೋಃ.
And all of these examples, the reason 100 examples are given, and we also have to keep hearing that example in our mind, is only then we'll eventually come to a realization, right? So he says, just like how if your eyesight is gone tomorrow, that doesn't mean you as a seer is gone, right? You are still alive. Your eyes are gone. You cannot see anymore, but you are alive, right? He says, exactly think of your body and soul in that relationship. Just because the body is gone doesn't mean the soul is gone, right? So that is all of this. We have to keep remaining 100, all these different examples to make us understand what the connection is. Tasman karyas santraso, comma, na karpanyam na sambhramaha बुद्ध्वा जीव गतिम धीरो, मुक्त संगश चरेदिह. तस्मान् न कार्यः सन्त्रासो न कार्पण्यं न संभ्रमः बुद्ध्वा जीव गतिम धीरो मुक्त संगश्चरेदिह.
तस्मान्न कार्यः सन्त्रासो न कार्पण्यं न संभ्रमः बुद्ध्वा जीवगतिं धीरो मुक्तसङ्गश्चरेदिह.
तस्मान्न कार्यः सन्त्रासो न कार्पण्यं न संभ्रमः बुद्ध्वा जीवगतिं धीरो मुक्तः संगश्चरेदिह.
सम्यग् दर्शनया बुद्ध्या, योग वैराग्य युक्तया माया विरचिते लोके, चरेण्यस्य कलेवरम्. सम्यक् दर्शनया बुद्ध्या योग वैराग्य युक्तया माया विरचिते लोके चरेण्यस्य कलेवरम्.
सम्यक् दर्शनया बुद्ध्या योग वैराग्य युक्तया माया विरचिते लोके चरेण्यस्य कलेवरम्.
सम्यग् दर्शनया बुद्ध्या योगवैराग्ययुक्तया माया विरचिते लोके चरेण्यस्य कलेवरम्.
इति श्रीमद्भागवते महापुराणे पारमहंस्यां संहितायां तृतीयस्कन्धे कापिलेयोपाख्याने जीवगतिर्नाम 31
इति श्रीमद्भागवते महापुराणे पारमहंस्यां संहितायां तृतीयस्कन्धे कापिलेयोपाख्याने जीवगतिर्नाम 31.
Rajesh, in the booklet जीवगतिर्नामैक அப்படின்னு சேத்து.
I'm just breaking that nama and eka. So nama 31.
Okay. इति श्रीमद्भागवते महापुराणे पारमहंस्यां संहितायां तृतीयस्कन्धे कापिलेयोपाख्याने जीवगतिर्नाम 31.
अथ 32. कपिलो उवाच अथ यो गृहमेधीयान्, धर्मानेवावसन् गृहे काममर्थं च धर्मान् स्वान्, दोग्धे भूयः पिपर्तितान्. कपिलौवाच अथयो गृहमेधीयान् धर्मानेवावसन् गृहे काममर्थं च धर्मान् स्वान् दोग्धिभूयः पिपर्तितान्
कपिल उवाच अथ योगगृहे मेदीयान् धर्मानेवावसन् गृहे काममर्थं च धर्मान् स्वान् दोग्धिभूयः पिपर्तितान्
कपिल उवाच अथ यो गृहमेधीयान् धर्मानेवावसन् गृहे काममर्थं च धर्मान् स्वान् दोग्धिभूयः पिपर्तितान्
स चापि भगवत् धर्मात् पुट प्लस काम मूढः पराङ्मुखः यजते क्रतुभिर्देवान् कौम पितॄंश्च श्रद्धयान्वितः स चापि भगवद्धर्मात् काममूढः पराङ्मुखः यजते क्रतुभिर्देवान् पितॄंश्च श्रद्धयान्वितः
स चापि भगवद्धर्मात् काममूढः पराङ्मुखः यजते क्रतुभिर्देवान् पितॄंश्च श्रद्धयान्वितः
स चापि भगवद्धर्मात् काममूढः पराङ्मुखः यजते क्रतुभिर्देवान् पितृंश्च श्रद्धयान्वितः
टच श्रद्धयाक्रांत मतिः कौम पितृदेव व्रतः पुमान् गत्वा चान्द्रमसं लोकं कौम सोमपाः पुनरेष्यति तच्छ्रद्धयाक्रान्तमतिः पितृदेव व्रतः पुमान् गत्वा चान्द्रमसं लोकं सोमपाः पुनरेष्यति
तच्छ्रद्धयाक्रान्तमतिः पितृदेवव्रतः पुमान् गत्वा चान्द्रमसं लोकं सोमपाः पुनरेष्यति फर्स्ट वर्ड तप्पा चलेना
no correct touch shraddaya
तच्छ्रद्धयाक्रान्तमतिः
அது வந்து it's a tat and shraddaya but when it comes together it becomes tat shraddaya shra sound
तच्छ्रद्धयाक्रान्तमतिः पितृदेवव्रतः पुमान् गत्वा चान्द्रमसं लोकं सोमपाः पुनरेष्यति
first line after the comma vratah puman
पितृदेवव्रतः पुमान्
yeah vratah puman yeah I think you said br by mistake bra so yada chahindra shayyayam comma shete nantasano one word shete ananta but the s symbol so shete nantasano harihi tada loka layam yanti comma ta ete griha medhinam यथा चाहीन्द्रशय्यायां शेते नन्तासनो हरिः तदा लोकालयं यान्ति त एते गृहमेधिनाम्
यदा चाहीन्द्रशय्यायां शेतेनन्तासनो हरिः तदा लोकालयं यान्ति त एते गृहमेधिनाम्
यदा चाहीन्द्रशय्यायां शेतेऽनन्तासनो हरिः तदा लोकालयं यान्ति त एते गृहमेधिनाम्
ये स्वधर्मान् दुह्यन्ति कौम धीराः कामार्थ हेतवे निस्संगा न्यस्तकर्माणः कौम प्रशान्ताः शुद्धचेतसः ये स्वधर्मान् दुह्यन्ति धीराः कामार्थ हेतवे निस्संगा न्यस्तकर्माणः प्रशान्ताः शुद्धचेतसः
ये स्वाधर्मान् न दुह्यन्ति धीराः कामार्थहेतवे निस्संगा न्यस्तकर्माणः प्रशान्ताः शुद्धचेतसः
In the first line you said swa I heard just swa ye swadharma
ये स्वधर्मान् न दुह्यन्ति धीराः कामार्थहेतवे निस्संगा न्यस्तकर्माणः प्रशान्ताः शुद्धचेतसः
nivritti dharma nirataha because you're going to put a comma add a visarga there nirmama nirahankritaha स्वधर्माख्येन सत्त्वेन, परिशुद्धेन चेतसा। निवृत्तिधर्मनिरताः निर्ममा निरहङ्कृताः स्वधर्माख्येन सत्त्वेन परिशुद्धेन चेतसा।
निर्वृत्तिधर्मनिरताः निर्ममा निरहङ्कृताः स्वधर्माख्येन सत्त्वेन परिशुद्धेन चेतसा.
First word nivritti.
Okay, sorry.
There's no ir there, so yeah.
निवृत्तिधर्मनिरताः निर्ममा निरहङ्कृताः स्वधर्माख्येन सत्त्वेन परिशुद्धेन चेतसा।
सूर्यद्वारेण ते यान्ति पुरुषं विश्वतो मुखं परावरेशं प्रकृतिं, breaking at that ma im, next word starts with the a. Asyotpatyanta bhavanam, one word, asyotpatyanta bhavanam. सूर्यद्वारेण ते यान्ति पुरुषं विश्वतो मुखं परावरेशं प्रकृतिम् अस्योत्पत्यन्त भावनम्।
सूर्यद्वारेण ते यान्ति पुरुषं विश्वतो मुखं परावरेशं प्रकृतिम् अस्योत्पत्यन्तभावनम्।
सूर्यद्वारेण ते यान्ति पुरुषं विश्वतो मुखं परावरेशं प्रकृतिम् अस्योत्पत्यन्तभावनम्।
We'll switch to the next. Narayani, you can be student, and Kalpana, you can be student. Dviparardhavasane, Dviparardha avasane, but it will go together. Dviparardhavasane yaha, pralayo brahmanastute tavad adhyasate lokam, parasya parachintakaha. द्विपरार्धावसाने यः प्रलयो ब्रह्मणस्तुते तावदध्यासते लोकं परस्य परचिन्तकाः।
द्विपरार्धावसाने यः प्रलयो ब्रह्मणस्तुते तावदध्यासते लोकं परस्य परचिन्तकाः।
द्विपरार्धावसाने यः प्रलयो ब्रह्मणस्तुते तावदध्यासते लोकं परस्य परचिन्तकाः।
मां भो नलानिल, it's like it's iksh, not a full ksha, so but up to that la it is together. Kshmambo nalanila viyan mana indriyartha, put a plus, bhutadibif parivritam prati sanjihirshuhu, those lines together. Avyakritam vishati yarhi guna trayatma, kalam parakyam anubhuya paras swayambhuhu. Shmambho nala nilaviyan mana indriyartha bhutadibif parivritam prati sanjihirshuhu. Avyakritam vishati yarhi gunatrayatma kalam parakyam anubhuya paraswayambhuhu.
मां भो नलानिलवियन्मन इन्द्रियार्थभूतादिभिः परिवृतं प्रति सञ्जिहीर्षुः अव्याकृतं विशति यर्हि गुणात्रयात्मा कालं पराख्यमनुभूय परस्वयम्भूः।
क्ष्माम्भो नलानिलवियन् मन इन्द्रियार्थभूतादिभिः परिवृतं प्रति सञ्चिहीर्षुः अव्याकृतं विशति यर्हि गुणत्रयात्मा कालं पराख्यमनुभूय परः स्वयम्भूः।
एवं परेत्य भगवन्तं अनुप्रविष्टा, ये योगिनो जित मरुन् मनसो विरागाः तेनैव साकम् अमृतं पुरुषं पुराणं, ब्रह्म pradhanam, I'm breaking at that ma there because the rest of the word is going to be one word. Pradhanam upayantya gatabhimanaha, one word. Evam paretya bhagavantam anupravishta ये योगिनो जितमरुन्मनसो विरागाः तेनैव साकममृतं पुरुषं पुराणं ब्रह्म प्रधानमुपयान्त्यगताभिमानाः
एवं परेत्य भगवन्तमनुप्रविष्टा ये योगिनो मनसो विरागाः तेनैव सागममृतं पुरुषं पुराणं ब्रह्मप्रदानमुपयान्त्य गताभि गदापि
गताभि
गताभिमानाः
एवं परेत्य भगवन्तमनुप्रविष्टा ये योगिनो जितमरुन्मनसो विरागाः तेनैव साकममृतं पुरुषं पुराणं ब्रह्मप्रदानम् उपयान्त्यगताभिमानाः
अत तं सर्वभूतानां हृत्पद्मेषु कृतालयं श्रुतानुभावं शरणं व्रज भावेन भामिनि अत तं सर्वभूतानां हृत्पद्मेषु कृतालयं श्रुतानुभावं शरणं व्रज भावेन भामिनि
अत तं सर्वभूतानां हृत्पद्मेषु कृतालयं श्रुतानुभावं शरणं व्रजभावेन भामिनी
अत तं सर्वभूतानां हृत्पद्मेषु कृतालयं श्रुतानुभावं शरणं व्रजभावेन भामिनी
आद्यस्थिरचराणां यो वेद गर्भः सहर्षिभिः योगेश्वरैः कुमाराद्यैः सिद्धैर्योग प्रवर्तकैः आद्यस्थिरचराणां यो वेद गर्भः सहर्षिभिः योगेश्वरैः कुमाराद्यैः सिद्धैर्योग प्रवर्तकैः
आद्यस्थिरचराणां यो वेदगर्भः सहर्षिभिः योगेश्वरैः कुमाराद्यैः सिद्धैर्योगप्रवर्तकैः
आद्यस्थिरचराणां यो वेदगर्भसहर्षिभिः योगेश्वरैः कुमाराद्यैः सिद्धैर्योगप्रवर्तकैः
भेद दृष्ट्याभिमानेन, remember the word abhimanena, that's there, दृष्ट्याभिमानेन निस्संगेनापि कर्मणा कर्तृत्वात् सगुणं ब्रह्म पुरुषं पुरुषर्षभम् भेददृष्ट्याभिमानेन निस्संगेनापि कर्मणा कर्तृत्वात् सगुणं ब्रह्म पुरुषं पुरुषर्षभम्
भेददृष्ट्याभिमानेन निस्सङ्गेनापि कर्मणा कर्तृत्वात् सगुणं ब्रह्म पुरुषं पुरुषर्षभम्
sorry, and the last word
पुरुषर्षभम्
भेददृष्ट्याभिमानेन निस्सङ्गेनापि कर्मणा कर्तृत्वात् सगुणं ब्रह्म पुरुषं पुरुषर्षभम्
स संसृत्य पुनः काले कालेनेश्वर मूर्तिना जाते गुण व्यतिकरे यथा पूर्वं प्रजायते स संसृत्य पुनः काले कालेनेश्वर मूर्तिना जाते गुण व्यतिकरे यथा पूर्वं प्रजायते
स संसृत्य पुनः काले कालेनेश्वरमूर्तिना जाते गुणव्यतिकरे यथा पूर्वं प्रजायते
स संसृत्य पुनः काले कालेनेश्वरमूर्तिना जाते गुणव्यतिकरे यथा पूर्वं प्रजायते
ऐश्वर्यं पारमेष्ट्यं च तेपि धर्म विनिर्मितं निषेव्य पुनरायान्ति गुण व्यतिकरे सति शॉर्ट ई ऐश्वर्यं पारमेष्ट्यं च तेपि धर्म विनिर्मितं निषेव्य पुनरायान्ति गुण व्यतिकरे सति
ऐश्वर्यं पारमेष्ट्यं च तेऽपि धर्मविनिर्मितं निषेव्य पुनरायान्ति गुणव्यतिकरे सति
ऐश्वर्यं पारमेष्ट्यं च तेऽपि धर्मविनिर्मितं निषेव्य पुनरायान्ति गुणव्यतिकरे सति
ये त्विहासक्त मनसः कर्मसु श्रद्धयान्विताः कुर्वन्त्य प्रतिषिद्धानि, that one word is together, कुर्वन्त्य प्रतिषिद्धानि नित्यान्यपि च कृत्स्नशः ये त्विहासक्त मनसः कर्मसु श्रद्धयान्विताः कुर्वन्त्य प्रतिषिद्धानि नित्यान्यपि च कृत्स्नशः. नारायणी म्यूट लेके.
सॉरी. ये त्विहासक्तमनसः कर्मसु श्रद्धयान्विताः कुर्वन्त्य प्रतिषिद्धानि नित्यान्यपि च कृत्स्नशः.
ये त्विहासक्तमनसः कर्मसु श्रद्धयान्वितः कुर्वन्त्य प्रतिषिद्धानि नित्यान्यपि च कृत्स्नशः.
In the first line, last word, श्रद्धयान्विताः.
Oh, ये त्विहासक्तमनसः कर्मसु श्रद्धयान्विताः कुर्वन्त्य प्रतिषिद्धानि नित्यान्यपि च कृत्स्नशः.
रजसा कुण्ठ मनसः कामात्मानोजितेन्द्रियाः. Long word, cannot break it. Kama atmana ajita indriyaha. So 4 different words combined there. So we have to say it together. Pitrun yajantyanudinam, griheshva bhiratashayah. One word again. Rajasa kuntha manasah kamatmanojitendriyaha pitrun yajantyanudinam griheshva bhiratashayah.
रजसा कुण्ठमनसः कामात्मानोदितेन्द्रियाः पितॄन् यजन्त्यनुदिनं गृहेष्वभिरताशयाः.
रजसा कुण्ठमनसः कामात्मानोजितेन्द्रियाः पितॄन् यजन्त्यनुदिनं गृहेष्वभिरताशयाः.
The pitrun is, and that is a double r. So pitrun. Okay, so yeah, so it's two times it comes.
Yeah, just question. Is it kamatmano or kamatmano?
Kamatmano.
Okay, thank you.
Atmano, yeah, atmanah. Trivargikaste purushaha. So add a visarga there, comma. Vimukha hari medasah kathayam kathaniyoru, put a plus. Vikramasya madhu dvishah. Trivargikaste purushaha vimukha harime dasah kathayam kataniyoru vikramasya madhu dvishah.
त्रैवर्गिकास्ते पुरुषाः विमुखा हरिमेधसः कथायां कथनीयोरु विक्रमस्य मधुद्विषः.
त्रैवर्गिकास्ते पुरुषाः विमुखा हरिमेधसः कथायां कथनीयोरुविक्रमस्य मधुद्विषः.
Noonam daivena vihataha. You can add a visarga because we are pausing there. Echachyuta katha sudham hitva shrinvantya sadgataha. Cannot break that word. Shrinvantya sadgataha, purishamiva vid bhujaha. Noonam daivena vihataha echachyuta katha sudham hitva shrinvantya sadgathaha purishamiva vidbhujah.
नूनं दैवेन विहताः ये चाच्युतकथासुधां हित्वा शृण्वन्त्य सद्गाताः पुरीशमिव विड्भुजः.
नूनं दैवेन विहताः ये चाच्युतकथा सुधां हित्वा शृण्वन्त्य सद्गाताः पुरीशमिव विड्भुजः.
Dakshinena पतार्यम्नः पितृलोकं व्रजन्ति ते प्रजामनु प्रजायन्ते श्मशानान्तक्रियाकृतः दक्षिणेन पतार्यम्नः पितृलोकं व्रजन्ति ते प्रजामनु प्रजायन्ते श्मशानान्तक्रियाकृतः
दक्षिणेन पतार्यम्नः पितृलोकं व्रजन्ति ते प्रजामनुप्रजायन्ते शमशानान्तक्रियाकृतः.
And the second line after the comma is just, it starts with the ish. Shmashananta.
Oh, श्मशानान्तक्रियाकृतः.
दक्षिणेन पतार्यम्नः पितृलोकं व्रजन्ति ते प्रजामनु प्रजायन्ते श्मशानान्तक्रियाकृतः
ततस्ते क्षीण सुकृताः पुनर्लोकम इमं सति पतन्ति विवशा देवैः सद्यो बिभ्रंशितोदयाः ततस्ते क्षीण सुकृताः पुनर्लोकमिमं सति पतन्ति विवशा देवैः सद्यो बिभ्रंशितोदयाः
ततस्ते क्षीणसुकृताः पुनर्लोकम् इमं सति पतन्ति विवशा देवैः सद्यो विभ्रंशितोदयाः
ततस्ते क्षीणसुकृताः पुनर्लोकमिमं सति पतन्ति विवशा देवैः सद्यो बिभ्रंशितोदयाः
तस्मात् त्वं सर्वभावेन भजस्व परमेष्ठिनं तद्गुणाश्रयया भक्त्या भजनीय पदाम्बुजम् तस्मात् त्वं सर्वभावेन भजस्व परमेष्ठिनं तद्गुणाश्रयया भक्त्या भजनीय पदाम्बुजम्
तस्मात् त्वं सर्वभावेन भजस्व परमेष्ठिनं तद्गुणाश्रयया भक्त्या भजनीय पदाम्बुजम्
तस्मात् त्वं सर्वभावेन भजस्व परमेष्ठिनं तद्गुणाश्रयया भक्त्या भजनीय पदाम्बुजम्
वासुदेवे भगवति भक्ति योगः प्रयोजितः जनयत्याशु वैराग्यं ज्ञानं यत् ब्रह्म दर्शनम् वासुदेवे भगवति भक्ति योगः प्रयोजितः जनयत्याशु वैराग्यं ज्ञानं यत् ब्रह्म दर्शनम्
वासुदेवे भगवति भक्तियोगः प्रयोजितः जनयत् याशु वैराग्यं ज्ञानं यद्ब्रह्मदर्शनम्
वासुदेवे भगवति भक्तियोगप्रयोजितः जनयत्याशु वैराग्यं ज्ञानं यत् ब्रह्मदर्शनम्
यदास्य चित्तमर्तेषु समेष्विन्द्रिय वृत्तिभिः न विगृह्णाति वैषम्यं प्रियम् अप्रियमित्युत ब्रेकिंग एट दैट मा यदास्य चित्तमर्थेषु समेष्विन्द्रिय वृत्तिभिः न विगृह्णाति वैषम्यं प्रियम् अप्रियमित्युत
यदास्य चित्तमर्तेषु समेष्विन्द्रियवृत्तिभिः न विगृह्णाति वैषम्यं प्रियम् अप्रियमित्युत
यदास्य चित्तमर्तेषु समेष्विन्द्रियवृत्तिभिः न विगृह्णाति वैषम्यं प्रियम् अप्रियमित्युत
तदैवात्मना आत्मानं but together निस्संगं समदर्शनं हेयोपादेय रहितं break that ma im आरूढ़ं पदमीक्षते
Rajesh, the first letter, is it sa or ta?
सा I have सा
Okay, thank you, Rajesh.
स तथैवात्मनात्मानं निस्संगं समदर्शनं हेयोपाधेयरहितम् आरूढं पदमीक्षते
सततैवात्मनात्मानं निस्सङ्गं समदर्शनं हेयोपादेयरहितम् आरूढं पदमीक्षते
स तथैवात्मनात्मानं निस्सङ्गं समदर्शनं हेयोपादेयरहितम् आरूढं पदमीक्षते.
So I think what I'm going to do today is I don't think we're going to have a third group being able to chant today. I'm just going to go till 30 and then I'm going to say the meaning because this is the last of the Kapilopakhyanam, so there's a lot of stanzas. So we'll go till 30 and then I'll say the meaning till there. Jnana matram param brahma, comma, paramatmeshwarah puman, drishyadibhif pratak bhavaihi, put a visargan, comma. Next line, drop of the bha, the ir will go away. Bhagavaneka iyate. Jnanamatram param brahma paramatmeshwarah puman drishyadibhih pratak bhavaihi Bhagavaneka iyate.
ज्ञानमात्रं परं ब्रह्म परमात्मेश्वरः पुमान् दृश्यादिभिः पृथक् भावैः भगवानेक ईयते
ज्ञानमात्रं परं ब्रह्म परमात्मेश्वर पुमान् दृश्यादिभिः पृथग्भावैः भगवानेकयीयते.
एतावानेव योगेन समग्रेनेह योगिनः युज्यतेभिमतो one word ह्यर्थो यदसङ्गस्तु कृत्स्नशः एतावानेव योगेन समग्रेनेह योगिनः युज्यतेभिमतो ह्यर्थो यदसङ्गस्तु कृत्स्नशः
एतावानेव योगेन समग्रेणेह योगिनः युज्यतेभिमतो ह्यर्थो यदसङ्गस्तु कृत्स्नशः
एतावानेव योगेन समग्रेनेह योगिनः युज्यतेभिमतो ह्यर्थो यदसङ्गस्तु कृत्स्नशः.
ज्ञानम एकम parachinahi. R goes away. Visarga comma. Next word starts with the E. Indriyai Brahma Nirgunam Avabhatyartha Rupena, comma. Bhrantya Shabdadi Dharmina. Jnanamekam parachinaihi Indriyai Brahma Nirgunam Avabhatyartha Rupena Bhrantya Shabdadi Dharmina.
ज्ञानमेकं पराचीनैः इन्द्रियैर्ब्रह्मनिर्गुणम् अवबाध्यर्थरूपेण भ्रान्त्या शब्दादितर्मिणा
ज्ञानमेकं पराचीनैः इन्द्रियैर्ब्रह्मनिर्गुणम् अवबाध्यर्थरूपेण भ्रान्त्या शब्दादिधर्मिणा.
Yatha Mahanaham Rupaha, that is goes away, Visarga comma. Tribrit Pancha Vidhas Swarat Ekadasha Vidhastasya, comma, Vapurandam Jagatyataha. Yatha Mahanaham Rupaha Tribrit Pancha Vidhas Swarat Ekadasha Vidhastasya Vapurandam Jagatyataha.
यथा महानहं रूपः त्रिवृत् पञ्चविधस्वराट् एकादशविधस्तस्य वपुरण्डं जगत्यतः
यथा महानहं रूपः त्रिवृत् पञ्चविधस्वराट् एकादशविधस्तस्य वपुरण्डं जगत्यतः.
एतद्वै श्रद्धया भक्त्या योगाभ्यासेन नित्यशः समाहितात्मा निस्सङ्गो विरक्त्या परिपश्यति. एतद्वै श्रद्धया भक्त्या योगाभ्यासेन नित्यशः समाहितात्मा निस्सङ्गो विरक्त्या परिपश्यति.
एतद्वै श्रद्धया भक्त्या योगाभ्यासेन निद्यशः समाहितात्मा निस्सङ्गो विरक्त्या परिपश्यति
एतद्वै श्रद्धया भक्त्या योगाभ्यासेन नित्यशः समाहितात्मा निस्सङ्गो विरक्त्या परिपश्यति.
We'll stop there on the text today. I'll see how much we can continue complete on the meaning on this. We'll stop at like 3:20, 3:25 as I have to head out. So, okay, so this is kind of this one more chapter in Skandam Canto 3, but the Kapila Upadesham comes to an end in this chapter. And 33, which is the last chapter of the third canto, is what happens because he's been telling Devahuti all these things, right? So, what is happening to Devahuti and what happens to Kapila is in the 33rd chapter, but this is the last of the Upadesham. So in this, he's touching on a few things, right? So we saw in one of the chapters, we saw that you do bad things, what it's going through, right? The experience the soul has before it takes birth. And then we saw the birth process and all of that we saw in the previous chapter. In this, he talks about, okay, now not everybody is doing everything bad. We also do a lot of good things, right? So what is happening in that case, right? And is clearly separating of saying the liberation versus doing good things, but not getting liberated on all the other positive benefits before you take. But he's kind of touching through that. And then at the very last of the chapter is literally a summary of the overall Kapilopadesham, right? Which is the very end of this chapter. So first he talks about in the Grihamedhiyan, Grihastha. So it's Grihastha, now all of us, right, we all have family, we all have work, we all have social responsibilities, and we all do a lot of good things. So for example, we are going and doing homam, yajna we do shraddham, we are doing pitru pujas that a lot of people perform. Then a lot of people perform pujas for the various demigods who are actually there. We all perform various vratams. We do a lot of charity and all of these things. He says a person who's doing all of these things, but if he's doing with the intention of either getting some economic development, which is he's saying, I want to be prosperous, I want to be rich, right? Or I'm actually doing something so that I don't have any problems, or for anything which is material gain, he's saying not that it is bad. You can absolutely do that. He says the problem is you'll keep doing it because by doing it, you will get some benefits. Then you're going to get sucked into it. And then you're going to do it again. Then you're going to get sucked into it again. So he says this becomes a cycle of you getting hooked into it, right? And he says, and the problem with it also, he says, is because you're doing it for some level of sense gratification, he says the bhakti portion is always going to come down because you're always doing it with the intention of getting something in return, not without any loving service, right? Even if you do, any vows or charity. And so the emphasis here is not saying do not do all of these things. He's saying absolutely do all of these things, right? But he says the intention and the motivation behind it cannot be something that is going to be of benefit to you, right? So he says the people who do these things, when the soul departs, like we saw in the previous thing, when you do a lot of bad things, you say your soul experiences all the pain that you committed, the sins you committed, and it goes through a bad experience before it goes, right? Here in this case, it says it goes to Chandramasam. Doesn't mean it goes to the moon, because moon also is Chandra, but it doesn't refer to the moon here. It refers to another loka called Chandra Loka, which is owned by a different Chandra god. It's not a physical area, it's more like an experience, right, that you get. He says where it goes there, where it is a life full of, it does enjoy the benefits of it, right? So it does feel good. Like when you say good means no worries, no pain, right? You feel good, you are happy, all of that is there. So you will get some of the benefits of it, but you're going to be born again, right? And the thing, like I said last time, the sin issue is there is not everything you do in this janmam means you're going to carry it forward into the other births. There are certain things you experience right after the soul leaves the body, and that gets washed away. Remaining things carry. The things that get washed away could either be bad experiences, the feeling that is hurting you, or it could be positive experiences, like in this case. But the problem with all of this is you get born again because you still have a lot of other karma, right? And all of it, you still have to be born again. And that's what he's kind of remaining that eventually that even any planet you go to, if you perform so many good things, right, with the intention of getting something in return, that you even get elevated to being in Swarga Loka, he says, remember, when that certain quota gets over, if you still have other karmas to be burnt, you are going to be born again. So there's never end to it, right? The only time end for all of these things is finally when the Bhagavan decides to rest on Adishesha and pull the entire world together. Till then, you're going to keep taking births because you keep building karma every single time, right? And he'll give you an option to get out of it. But he says normal process, that is it, right? And then he talks a little bit about karma yoga, right? He says the best way for people to perform all of these things is to perform without any attachment to all of these things. So without getting any ownership, right? Without any ego that I am the person doing it. So I am the one who needs to get benefit. So not have any of those things, which is very, very hard for us to do, right? It's extremely hard. Anything we do, we calculate, right? Saying what is the return of investment that we are going to get. We are so conditioned to think like that. So it is very hard. So in this case, he says by doing that, by not attaching yourself to anything, then what happens is the consciousness keeps getting better and better, and you'll eventually, that will help you clear things, right? And that's such a difficult thing. Just think of it, right, practically for a second, right? You have to do something really good deed tomorrow, right? And if somebody comes and says, do the deed, but say you don't want any benefits out of that, right? It's very hard. I think 99% of the things we do, we won't do because of that, right? If we don't want anything in return, right? But that is a challenge. That's why the karma yoga is an extremely hard process to kind of follow. It's easier said, right? Anyway, so that is the people who are doing the karma yoga, expecting something in return. They go through the chandramasam, they go through that path. Then there are people who follow the path of spiritual jnana yoga, who go through the path of spiritual knowledge, of understanding what this Brahman is. He says those people, as well as there are a lot of people who worship Hiranyagarbha, who worship Brahma. He says all of them, what happens is the people who worship Brahma also, they get elevated to the Brahma Loka when they meet the necessary criteria. Even they don't get liberated, he says. They will all get, like we saw through the Ashtanga Yoga process also we saw, right? When you're able to bring the pranavayu and you're exiting it, right? Only if you want liberation, you can exit and get liberated. If you don't want to get liberation, you can be an expert in Ashtanga Yoga and you can get your soul out of your body. It will still have to go. It will go through all the other planets, enjoy, and finally go station itself in Brahmaloka. Then when the Dviparardha of Brahma ends, and then Brahma himself merges into Bhagavan, you will then get liberated. Otherwise, you're going to be, the cycle is going to continue, right? So even in that case, he says you are not going to be fully liberated, right? So that's what he talks about, the Jnana Yoga, as well as going through the path of the Ashtanga Yoga. So in Dashakam, in stanza 11, right? He says, the only way, oh mother, he says, if you want to get liberated completely, you want to get liberated, not get any benefits, not get any of those things, he says devotional service is the only way where you can get completely liberated, right? And get completely merged, is to completely surrender yourself to all of those things. So he says even the gods like Brahma, he says, remember, they are also being born. Brahma has to comes out again, right? The next day, Brahma has to come again because he has a certain job, right? He has to create. He has to do that. Well, he has to do his work. So he also has to come. He says, even the greatest of the gods and the beings, every day of Bhagavan, they have to come again because they still have leftover stuff, right? Unless they come to a point where they say, I need absolutely nothing, and then do it, right? So that is the first category. And then later on, he goes to the people, majority of us who are attached because of Rajas, because so much desire we have, and then we perform all these activities, right? He says we are called as Trivargika. Trivargika means we perform all the rituals, we go study all the Vedas, Upanishads, everything. We all give charity. We do all of these things. He says, but we do all of these things and we do pay to the Pritrus. He says we do all of these things for the benefit of our family, for the benefit of everybody. The first category is very purely a little bit selfish kind, right? Saying that I want to get everything, right? There's a sense enjoyment. The second category is where majority of us fall, where we all do it for the benefit of everybody. that means again you are expecting some result in return. He says the people who do that, in that case, they go to the Pitraloka. So when we say we praying to the Pitras, right? Because they all go to the Pitraloka. So that is the separate classification he's doing of the people who go to Chandraloka versus the people who go to Pitraloka. So the first one is people who perform all the Vedic rituals and everything, but for personal benefits, right? So, like I chant Rudram. So I will not say that is anything bad, but I'm just saying the Chamakam portion of Rudram also asks for a lot of things, right? So, some people say, oh, you don't have to chant Chamakam at all, because that means you're asking for things. My point being, any Vedic things asks for something in return. That's why, Narada came and told Vyasa that the problem with that is Vedas have to be learned by people who are already mature, who are spiritually advanced, because then they don't expect anything in return. Otherwise, if they're not spiritually mature, what happens is they'll do it expecting something in return. And the problem with expecting something in return is they are going to get that something in return, but then they have to be born again. They have to go through that cycle again, right? He says the Vedas have to be learned by somebody who's already realized, because then they will not want anything, right? So it's not anything bad about the Vedas. It's about us, expecting something in return. So that category of people go to the Chandra Lokam. The other category go to the Pitras, right? Where again, you will have a period of time and then you will again be born there. So that is kind of where we will stop here today. That almost is about halfway through that. And then he pretty much at the end, he says that his message is very consistent. He says, you have to do things without expecting anything in return. And the only thing which will let you do that is complete surrender to Bhagavan, and doing the devotional service means you will not expect anything in return. And that is the way you will not get attached to any of those outcomes, right? Which is what Krishna also said in Bhagavad Gita, but it is very difficult for us all to follow anyway. So with that, we'll stop in today's class. Shri Hare Namaha, Shri Hare Namaha, Shri Hare Namaha. Gopika Jivana Smaranam Govinda Govinda. Sadgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai. Kayena Vacha Manasendriye Va Buddhyatmana Va Prakrute Swabhavat. Karomi Yatyat Sakalam Parasmai Narayanaeti Samarpayami.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you, Rajeshi.
Bye, everyone. Bye.